The North Sea Empire is one of history's forgotten empires, mainly because it was so short-lived. But what exactly was the North Sea Empire? What if it didn't fade into obscurity like it did? Before we go over anything, what exactly was the North Sea Empire? The North Sea Empire, as we like to call it today, was ruled by Canute the Great. The empire practically didn't exist as it wasn't united, and just 3 kingdoms ruled by Canute, those 3 kingdoms being Denmark, Norway, and England. After the death of Canute, his empire was split amongst his sons, and that was pretty much it. But what if it didn't? What if Canute's empire survived the test of time and existed long after the death of its creator? That is what we are going to look over today. How do we make this happen? The first problem we have to tackle is the early death of Canute. While it is unknown why Canute died, some speculate that an illness took his life. In that case, he somehow recovers from his illness. And being struck by the fear of death, he realizes that he needs to leave a legacy behind him. He would then see that the current inheritance law would destroy his life's work. So to counteract that, he would probably create a political union of all the kingdoms, either uniting them into one single kingdom, or subordinating them to another title created by him. But after that, another problem would arise. Legitimacy. Almost no one would recognize these claims made by Canute, so he would have to pull some strings. Concessions to the Pope and deals with the Holy Roman Empire would have to be made in order for his plan to bear fruit. Supposing everything goes smoothly, next on Canute's agenda would be to secure a capable heir to the throne, as well as adopting the more complex and useful Anglo-Saxon laws, such as their governing policies. So that's that. The North Sea Empire is now officially cemented in the annals of history. But what happens after? Hardrada, the Thunderbolt of the North, captain of Yaroslav the White, personal bodyguard of the Byzantine Emperor, soon to be King of Norway. In our timeline, after being beaten by Canute, Harald got exiled from Norway and lived a life full of adventures, conquests, and riches, only to return later and reclaim his throne. Does this happen in our timeline? Well, probably not. He managed to do that by allying himself to a pretender to the Norwegian throne, Sweyn II. But then, when the current King Magnus said that he couldn't fight his uncle Harald, and that he is willing to share the crown with him, Harald immediately took his chance and became co-ruler of Norway. In this timeline, Norway would be under Canute, so Harald would not only have no allies, but also have to face the wrath of England, Norway, and Denmark, combined being led by Canute, the man who defeated Harald in battle before. Since Harald wouldn't have Norway, there won't be any invasion of England that the Normans could exploit, so William the Conqueror never manages to conquer England, and instead his attention would be directed somewhere else. All in all, it is safe to say that English culture would not develop. That is about it for the external threats, but how about the internal ones? Religion would be another issue for Canute, as his country would be pretty much split between Christianity and Norse faith. Missionaries would have to be sent all over pagan lands as to create a stable empire. A strong relationship with the papacy would provide support in converting these lands and would be beneficial to both Canute and the Pope. Culturally, there wouldn't be that many differences between the people living in England and Scandinavia to prevent an homogenization between these two people, as there weren't any English people at this time, only Anglo-Saxons who had Germanic roots, so it would certainly be a possibility that over time, people in the Isles would become some sort of Anglo-Nordic culture. What would cause this change? Certainly the better weather, Fertility of the soil and the improved standard of living in the Isles would cause intense migration from Denmark and Norway to England. Assuming the Empire stays united, over time we will definitely see the center of power slowly moving away from the Nordic countries towards the British Isles. Even so, this empire might seek to dominate the trade and land around the Baltic Sea, creating a safe space for their merchants, ironically mirroring the Roman Empire to the south. Even more ironic, this empire would face a similar threat as in the Germans. How the empire could maneuver around the German emperors depends entirely on the competence of the northern rulers. In the best-case scenario, they would hold all the lands adjacent to the Nordic Sea. In the worst-case scenario, they would be kicked out of northern Germany and the Baltic states, leaving only the Norwegian and Danish territories. If such a thing would happen, due to the population being disproportionately settled in Britain, this could lead to independence movements from the Isles and a subsequent breakup of the empire in two. But more likely than not, the answer lies somewhere in the middle. They control the Baltic states and maybe some of the northern Holy Roman Empire, but these lands will exchange hands constantly as history goes on. Navally, they would be unrivaled in their strength. Like Britain during the time of its empire, they would dominate the English Channel. But the difference here is, unlike Britain, this empire would have continental ambitions as well. Other challenges this empire would have to face would be the rise of Poland, Lithuania, and Russia later in history, which would dramatically impact Nordic influence over Europe. And since there would be such a vast difference in population between the Nordic Empire and Russia especially, chances are this empire would be doomed to fail later on. But one thing could completely alter the course of history. A mysterious man would have a strange request for Canute. This man's name was Thorfinn Karlsefni, and he knew of the existence of land far away, where no kingdoms or empires existed yet. And that land was America!